fourth. I cannot, yeah, no, they were three. And then this was the championship medal from the University of Chicago, 1915. He was captain of the water polo team alongside, he was first assistant captain, then he became captain alongside Johnny Weissmuller. Tarzan, for those of you who remember the first Tarzan. So ang lolo nila, and there he was. I mean, he wasn't short, but compared to them, yeah. So we have a picture of that. And so he was through and through until his 80s a sportsman. Okay, he was playing golf. This was a tournament jointly of Knights of Columbus and the Freemason. It was a dual golf. Um, so he entered UP not alone. His sister-in-law, the older sister-in-law, Romona, her name, after whom Bebet is called, was also a professor there. And a few other people, well-known people, anyway, Jorge Bocobo, a few of them becoming president after. So he was in, and he made his name in education, in not in PWU but in UP. Next, please. So in 1912, at 23, he joined UP as an instructor in economics. Okay, after he came back from the US, and then he at that time had already a bachelor and a master's of arts from the University of Chicago, and then he started to teach social sciences. He earned a Bachelor of Laws. This guy was an educator and a student for life. So he also studied law. So all of that was to prepare him to be the first Filipino dean at UP. It was the College of Liberal Arts. And he also was very much in the forefront of economics and development. So he was the founding dean of the College of Business Administration, where Bebet went to school. It used to be, there was a Gusaling Benitez beside the Benitez Hall, if any of you are from UP. Benitez Hall is education, named after Francisco Benitez, who was the founding dean. So beside it, on the right was Gusaling Benitez, named because it was BA before, named after. But I guess they felt having two Benitez buildings beside each other was a bit much, right? So when the BA moved into the economics, the new economics building, that was renamed as the Cesar Virata School of Economics, right? And wala na yung Gusaling Benitez. But I still remember that in the 70s that it was Gusaling Benitez. The next, please. Um, when I asked my siblings, what do you remember of Lolo? And my eldest sister said, Lolo Conrado was a two-finger typist who wrote Philippine history books. He must have been a fast writer. Because he churned them out. Those, not just history books, but there were textbooks, okay? And we remember him fondly doing Tundok system. So he wrote Philippine history, for fourth-year high school students, economic development of life in the Philippines for second-year university students, Philippine civics, used by fourth graders, and then a history of the Orient, used by third-year high school students. No, equally important was his being the founding editor-in-chief of the Philippines Herald, the first English-speaking journal in the Philippines. And he had an article, long-running, at the Tribune, Food for Thought, which gave you a good understanding of human nature, Filipino nature, and social progress. Um, that that all trained him to be the first dean of the College of Liberal Arts, first Filipino dean. Okay, next please. This was his first staff under the Philippines Herald. You can see Carlos P. Romulo. They were mostly the staff of the Collegian at UP, where he was the student advisor. So, next, please. So this is the influence naman of Jose Abad Santos. Okay, he studied law. He started a law firm with Jose Abad Santos. He influenced Jose Abad Santos to buy 5 hectares across where Miranila is. Okay, And yes, they continue to have 5 hectares across Miranila on Mariposa. So as a lawyer, as an economist, he was very much part of the independence mission to the US in 1918. You can see him here among many, okay? But you have other notables there: Rafael Palma, Torres Earnshaw, Jorge Vargas, Quintin Paredes, Jorge Locobo, Rafael Alunan, Camilo Osias, Marcos Roses, Jose Ebad Santos, Teofilo Sison, Jaime de Vera, Maximo Calao, and Presencio Luz. Okay, those are some of the Filipinos who were in that mission. Um, and he was also known internationally, not just in the US, because he was known in Japan, China, and Canada for being twice a delegate to the conferences of the Institute of Pacific Relations. Okay, and that was the face of the Philippines, which was not yet a country, but he really wanted to establish a presence in those international gatherings. He was at the time executive secretary of and director of the institute in the Philippines. I'm trying to think what that institute. I think nagkukulang ako ng isang word dyan. And he was part of the Joint Preparatory Committee on Philippine Affairs, appointed by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, together with Quezon, to study about trade relations between the two countries. So he was very much into building nationhood and making sure that we had the good end of the stick, if that was at all possible, between colonizer and colonized. Finally, that prepared him to help write and draft. He was one of the 7 wise men, the 1935 Constitution. This is the signing. That looks like Lolo Oyong.
Yeah, that's the one I
Doesn't
mentioned.
it? That looks like Lolo Oyong. And they were signing here the 1935 Constitution. Okay, maybe we go to the next. Also, Conrado, not just an educator, he was an advocate for Filipina nation building. He thought that the women should be right beside the men in nation building, and so he was 150% supporting the establishment of PWU. It was chaired by Jose Abad Santos. So he was chairman of the board, and he wrote the Articles of Incorporation. Is that right? I think Marco, he wrote the Articles of Incorporation, and he stepped down in 1939 before the war. But he was chairman of the board then. And Conrado was simply a board member of PWU, but really just supporting. He was also very much part of the establishment of Bayanihan. People always say Tita Helen started Bayanihan. No, I always remember that he was the one who was pushing Tita Helen to incorporate it, to make it a foundation. You know, he was really right there behind Bayanihan. Okay, next please. We found in the vault his wallet, and I found 24 cards of various different clubs. I said, what's this? And clubs, you know, maybe Americans liked, maybe at that time, belonging to clubs. Well, so did he. So when they were not allowed to be part of a club, they started their own. And that's how Wak Wak Golf Club started, because Philippine Manila Golf Club, in where we now know as Forbes, right? They didn't allow Filipinos. Okay. The Army Navy Club didn't allow Filipinos, so they had the Philippine Colombian. Okay, and many of these clubs, Baguio Country Club, and dami, and you can see that he was keeping it in his pocket. You know, all these club memberships. It was just an interesting thing to see. Next, please. Here, he was also secretary and director of the Philippine Coconut Planters Association. So he really had his one foot with farming. He was very supportive of farming with his background in Laguna and coconuts. Okay, next. Talking about being clubby, he was a Mason, he was Knights of Columbus, and he was also Knights of Rizal. He was master very early on in 1936 of the Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons. So all of that was also in the vault that we found, that Bebet found, you know, because these are diamonds. They have diamonds in them. I don't know at the time when they were giving medals. Next, please. And so, and with all our different memories of our grandfather, this is Bebet, and she shared why what she remembered the most about Conrado. That when she was given the chance to take on U.S. citizenship, she did not. She was given 3 times the chance because she was born in the U.S. when my parents were there with the Philippine Embassy in Washington. She married an American. And then what was the third reason? You don't remember. And she refused 3 times. So Lolo Conrado said, I'm very proud of you for that. And then with Jenny, my youngest sister, it more involved feeling and the presence because we were asked every morning to go and say good morning to the grandparents and to Tita Helen. So they were always very present in our lives and we in theirs. So yeah, those are fun memories. Also, every morning when they would not be no, they would no longer be in their bedrooms, they would be cutting grass, the two of them, talahit around Miranila to keep the grass from overgrowing. So yeah, it was very wild Miranila at that time. You know, Mariposa was not really the way it was now. And then the next. Okay, so yeah, Willie says Lola Conrado was a presence, but it was Lola Francisca who gave the pointers and life lessons for me. Maybe I was too young to remember. So the two of them were very present in our lives, and he was certainly a big supporter. And for me, in life's lessons, he had accomplished a lot, but what affected us as grandchildren was the closeness of the two and the support of the two for each other. And Rosalie still remembers, I still remember holding hands. They would be holding hands in the back of the car when we would hitch a ride with them from Women's to get back to Mariposa. They were so sweet, you know, in their 70s and 80s. They were really there for each other. So that's our lesson. That I think to be strong, we also have to get that from our spouse and our family, you know, not just in the nation building and in the entities that we establish. So we go back to family. And thank you, Rafi, for giving me the chance to share this. It's rather long. I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Petty. And of course, Phil. Now may I call on Steve Benitez, founder of the rapidly expanding coffee sensation, Bo's Coffee. Yeah, Steve.
Good afternoon, everyone. Being one of the youngest in my generation, Rafi is my cousin. I have been voluntold to speak to everyone. In, Even if I don't have so much recollection of my grandfather, Seferino. So Seferino is the eldest of the 6 children of Higinio. And so I come from the Seferino line. I was the brother of Conrado and Elohio, two who were just shared a few moments ago. So I hear a little bit of story from my dad, but it was validated by Josefil this afternoon when we had a chance to speak. My grandfather was brought by his dad, Higinio, at a very young age, in his teens, to witness the execution of Jose Rizal in his teens. And the whole idea and the goal of his father, Higinio, was to show him what the love for country is all about, right? And I think it was reflected in the stories a while ago, how much our clan have that sense of nationalism and a love for country. And in my grandfather's story, that's the manifestation. And so he was brought there to witness the execution of Rizal. My grandfather, Seferino, was not a pensionado, unlike Elohio and Conrado, precisely because he was convinced by his father, Higinio, to stay in Laguna to take care of the younger siblings when the two brothers went out to study abroad. So Seferino ended up pursuing a degree in education and became a public school teacher in Laguna, Pagsanghan, Laguna. So I remember every summer when we would come, we would go to Pagsangan, Laguna, and see the history, the ancestral home. I didn't meet Lolo Saferino, but I would hear from all my titos and titas about the stories of Pagsangan. So I would only meet my first degree cousin because my father Ramon, who is the second out of 6 children of Seferino, was transferred to Cebu by his dad. And you all know when you're transferred to some faraway places, you must be doing something great here, right? Or the other way around. So in his single days, he was sent to Cebu in the 50s, right after the war, and he met my mom there, who is from Leyte. That story is worth another time to talk about because they eloped on the day 1 week before my mother was going to be wed to another. So that's how matinik the Benitezes are. Super matinik, not only in education, business, but in love also. So yeah, so that, and they were chased by the fiance of my mother with guns and whatever. The story is a long story. And my father was the one telling me about. So he met my dad. My mom's from Leyte. She was from a family of hacienderos in Leyte. And my father probably was had a Benitez blood of going into public service. And Tita Helen would visit Cebu. Probably that's how I met. That's how I connected to the clan. Because Tita Helen, who was the Girl Scout chief of the Philippines at that time, that was after his senatorial days, would come to Cebu, and every time she went to Cebu, she would visit my dad. Every time. And that's, as a little boy, I would see my dad and Tita Helen talk one-on-one in the living room, and I would eavesdrop a little bit, and a few years later, my father tried public service. He ran, but he lost. Probably because in later he was considered an outsider. So she was not part of the locality because it was my mom. But he was the one running the farm. But he lost. And yeah, that's the story of my dad. My dad was a lawyer, and he became a judge during the time of President Macapagal, the judge for agrarian reforms in Cebu. Very briefly, because when Macapagal lost the election, Marcos came.